Today we'll be discussing the book Invent to Learn: Making, Tinkering, and Engineering in the Classroom. So for this lesson, we will be going a quick book introduction, a brief summary of the book, some of my own analysis of the book, and my personal conclusions on this book, as well as a reference for this PowerPoint. So in this book, Invent to Learn: Making, Tinkering, and Engineering in the Classroom, it was written by Sylvia Leibau-Martinez and Dr. Gary Steger. And I got my information for the About the Authors from inventtolearn.com in the About the Authors section of the website. And Martinez was an engineer that helped develop the GPS satellite technology that we use today. And during her time inventing this technology, it was thought that it would be impossible. And Dr. Steger is a teacher that advocates learning by doing, and he got his start in education by teaching elementary school. The thesis of this book is getting children to learn through doing things that challenge them. Learning does not happen sitting behind a desk listening to a lecture. So a brief summary of this book covers three main ideas. First, why learning is so important, why inventing is so important. Throughout the book, child development theorist Piaget is mentioned continually, as well as Maria Montessori. John Dewey is also referenced heavily, and another theorist that I had not heard of until this book, Seymour Papert, who the authors credit as the father of the Makers Movement. And why they say you should implement this in your classroom, they use the argument that the best way to teach children is by having them making. And they use the developmental theorists to prove this point. And there are many resources. Every part of this book, the authors provide resources for teachers to implement this idea of teaching in the classroom. The end of the book contains an entire chapter dedicated to listing resources. So the analysis of this book is, this book talks about how the current educational system is flawed in the way our children today are taught. They write about how children are set in a one-size-fits-all factory education setting. However, children learn in many different ways, but the one way all children learn is through doing. Children can grasp new ideas more readily if they are able to apply learning concepts to their own lives. I've seen how schools focus more on testing than learning, and this causes most of the problems in the education today. This is also the most important aspect of the book that goes into every problem and solution discussed. So, programming should be taught in schools. Programming teaches math concepts in a way that lets children learn in a tangible way. It also helps children learn skills that will be invaluable for their future. School today don't teach much programming, if at all any. And so there's the project-based learning, and the mantra is less us, more them. It means that we should focus more on the students to help them learn. I like this concept because it puts learning in the hands of the children, giving them ownership of their education. It promotes learning as something you do on your own, and that is fun, unlike the current model of listening and regurgitation. The best way to do this is project-based learning. Projects should be picked by students because they will pick a project that interests them, giving them the choice and freedom. And so using the project-based learning has children doing instead of listening to boring lectures. Children can sit for hours at a time and they just check out. This is bad for learning. Having children doing keeps them occupied, but is not the primary reason for using this method. The arts are a very important way to teach children, and it's just as important as every other subject in school. They're disappearing in school, and this is a shame. Art helps children learn to look at problems from another perspective. This book touches on this a little, and I feel that art is very important for children. Another part of this book is mistakes are vital for learning. I know from my own personal experience that the mistakes I have made have taught me more than my accomplishments. We teach children that mistakes are bad, that perfection is the only way to succeed. This can't be further from the truth. We learn when mistakes are made. They teach us to go back in order to figure out where we went wrong. This is a skill few have, so people learn when they encounter a problem, they can get discouraged and they give up, lest they look unknowledgeable. The only criticism I have for this book is the sheer daunting fear of trying to implement the ideas of this book in the classroom. With the status of the educational system as it is, trying to accomplish these goals seems almost impossible. When you have to teach students a state-mandated test, it is too easy to let learning take a backseat. It is easier and more expedient to just teach the answers to the test so you don't have to worry about losing your job. And most of the skills talked about in this book, teachers don't have them because we are products of the current educational model that we are teaching in. So in conclusion, I really like this book. It contains a ton of information that can be useful for everyone. I would recommend it to anyone that works with children or has children. It will revolutionize how they approach learning for children. This book has inspired me to teach children using the Invent to Learn model. Once I become a teacher, I will introduce this method of teaching to everyone at the school and inform the parents of my students my goals for their child's education. Transforming the educational system will be one of my primary goals as a teacher. I have a long way to go, however. I need to learn the fundamentals of robotics and programming if I want to implement this model in the classroom. I have no experience with either of these fields, but the book contained a plethora of resources I can use to obtain the knowledge I learned. And here's a quick look at the references for this. We have the book itself and the website inventtolearn.com. Thank you.